Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Sharana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Sata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopna Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda, Hari Hari Bolo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from the 10th canto, chapter 50, which is Krishna establishes the city of Dwarka. And we're on text 4. Akshauhini bir Vimshatya Tishribish Chapi Samvrita Yadu Rajadanim Maturam Nyarudat Sarvato Disham Akshauhini bir Vimshatya Tishribish Chapi Samvrita Yadu Rajadanim Maturam Nyarudat Sarvato Disham Akshauhini bir Vimshatya Tishribish Chapi Samvrita Yadu Rajadanim Maturam Nyarudat Sarvato Disham Akshauhini bir Vimshatya Tishribish Chapi Samvrita Yadu Rajadanim Maturam Nyarudat Sarvato Disham Jahini Vimshatya. Tishribish Chapi Samvrita Hini bir Vimshatya Tishribish Chapi Samvrita Rajadanim Maturam Nyarudat Sarvato Disham. Anybody else? Akshauhini bihi by Akshahini divisions, each consisting of 21,870 soldiers on elephants, 21,870 charioteers, 65,610 cavalrymen, and go ahead. And 109,350 infantry soldiers. Vimshatya 20. Tishribihi cha api +3. Ho ho ho. Samvritaha surrounded. Yadu of the dynasty of Yadu. Rajadanim, the royal capital. Maturam, Mathura. Nyarudat, he besieged. Sarvata Disham, on all sides. So translation, with a force of 23 Akshahini divisions, he laid siege to the Yadu capital, Mathura, on all sides. So you can repeat. With a force of 23 Akshahini divisions, he laid siege to the Yadu capital, Mathura, on all sides. Wow. So purport, which is given by the servants of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The numbers involved in an Akshahini division are given in the word meanings. An Akshahini was a standard fighting force in ancient times. So Omegyana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So my mind is now calculating at math and like 6:30 in the morning, and it's not working. It calculated some last night, but now I'm kind of like, maybe I didn't calculate that right. 23 Akshahinis, but it's a lot. So I'm going to read the purports to the acharyas, and then we'll dive in to Krishna's pastimes. Okay, come on. Okay, so Jiva Goswami shares that each Akshahini consists of 20, repeating basically the same information in the purport, and then gives that he needs many troops to surround Mathura because of its size. Harivamsha gives the details of how he surrounded the city on all sides. And there's a lot of Sanskrit, but I'm not going to read that. I'm going to skip to the translation, which is, surround the city on all sides using iron machines, catapults, and mallets. Carry pikes and lances above. The Madras, king of Kalinga, Chikitana, Balika, the king of Kashmira, Ganarda, the king of Kurusha, Druma of the Kimpurushas, and Parvatya should climb the western gate of the city quickly. Paurava, Venudari, Vaidarbha, Somakas, Rukmi, king of the Bojas, Suryaksha, Galava, Bindu, and Anuvindu of Avanti, powerful Dantvakra, Chagali, Purumitrash, the king of Virat, Kaushalya, Malava, Shatadhanva, Vidurata, Burishrava, Trigarta, Bana, and Pancha Nada, all unconquerable, respectable kings, hard as thunderbolts, should climb and crush the northern gate. Ulaka, Kaitaveya, Viras, the son of Amsuman, Ekalavya, Brikat Kshatra, Kshatradharma, Jayadrat, Uttamauja, Shalya, and the Kauravas, and Kekayas, Videha, Vamadev, the warriors of Shaketa and Sinipati should quickly attack the eastern gate of the city. I, Varada, and Shishupal together, well armed, will take the southern gate. And so Sanatan Goswami's is pretty much the same, so I'm not going to repeat that. Lot of names, but so Omagana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So when I read this, I immediately thought of the Bhagavad Gita and the Pandavas, and specifically Dhritarashtra in the very first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and the very first verse of Dhritarashtra being there with Sanjay, and everybody's getting ready and prepared to go into battle. And so I was also thinking, as I was trying to calculate the numbers of these Akshahinis, that we're talking about over 1 million soldiers that are surrounding the city, right? It's well, I mean, and now I'm thinking 23 Akshahinis. This was an Akshahini division in itself is 656,100 soldiers. So you times that times 23. So you're talking 23. We're talking 22, 11.5 million. Okay, so I can do some calculating at 6:30 in the morning. So we're talking, 11.5 million. So let's just pretend, we're in, New Goloka, in Hillsborough, and, flat battleground, and we're talking, 11.5 soldiers surrounding us. It's a massive amount. And so, there's, all these calculations that are going, and all these soldiers and fighters who are well worth it. And of course, it just immediately transferred me over to the Bhagavad Gita and Dhritarashtra, getting ready for battle, with the Pandavas seemingly at a massive advantage as far as having Krishna's army, right? Krishna's army. And, all these great warriors behind him, and the Pandavas, just had Krishna, who wasn't going to fight, and, their army, so they seemingly at a disadvantage. And so then, so here we are, we're in the situation where Jarasandha and his army, massive army, are, surrounding the city, 11.5 million plus, and he goes at this for like 17 times, right? He keeps going at it. He leaves defeated, and he comes back again, and he leaves defeated, and he comes back again, and he does it over and over and over again. And then again, this is translating in my mind over to Dhritarashtra and the Kauravas, and they just keep going at it over and over and over again, and they're like not getting that they're on, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. They are on a holy sacred place, and Krishna's heading the opposite army. And here Jarasandha is with his 11.5 million soldiers coming at Dwarka. And later it'll be described that Krishna comes out of Dwarka with very few soldiers. And all this time, everybody thinking that they're just going to do this, right? That they're going to be able to conquer Krishna. And it made me think about the fact that Jarasandha, Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, and then Kalyavana is going to come into the picture later in the chapter. And apparently Krishna seems afraid, so he runs away, but he ends up tricking him into a cave where he gets burnt to ashes, And so what this made me think about was the fact that they don't really know who Krishna is. They have no concept that this, or even if they do, all their material desires and, needs to fulfill all of their, material lusty desires overshadows and overpowers the fact of who this is. Because even Duryodhana, gets the universal form expressed right in front of him, and he still doesn't get it. So these great people, or all these people, think that they actually know Krishna. And so I'm thinking that that's what our predicament is relative to why we're in this material world, and maybe why we're not advancing. And I'm really more or less speaking for myself of why we might not be advancing so fast, is because we still have these material desires. And it's given in the quote-unquote 11th offense of the 10 offenses that it's, it's okay to have material desires, but knowing that you have them and keeping them and not really doing anything about it is offensive. And so I'm thinking, this is what our real problem is not understanding who Krishna is. And so if you go to this verse that I was reminded of, first chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Actually, that's not true. It also, when I was correlating this, I was looking up things, and in the Bhagavad Gita, there's the fifth text of chapter 7 in the Bhagavad Gita, and the purport, because I want to go over this. It really highlights a lot of the points that were coming to mind, and confirming once again Srila Prabhupada's gift to us of correlating things and making everything synchronistic, and thinking about Krishna consciousness. So it's text 5. It's, beside these, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. And the reason they're misappropriating and exploiting and all these different resources, because again, we don't understand who Krishna is and who these resources belong to. So here it is clearly mentioned that the living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy. The living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic. Therefore, the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. And of course, that's what struck me, is that the energy is always controlled by the energetic. And again, not understanding who Krishna is, we think we're the controller. We think we're the enjoyer. The Purush and Ishvara, right? And we're Prakriti. We're to be enjoyed. And so this forgetfulness is forgetting that we're actually subordinate to that, and it's a matter of surrendering, and that we're the servant. That's our constitutional. This is what was, coming to my mind as I was thinking about these two juxtapositions and not understanding who Krishna is that, trying to surrender and all these other things is, that we're the servant. That's our constitutional position, is to serve, right? And, serve ourselves in the context of helping ourselves become as Krishna conscious as possible, serve others to help them become Krishna conscious, and then also to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's our constitutional position. And when we forget that, we get into this situation where we think we're the controller. We think we're Dhritarashtra. We think we're Jarasandha. We think we're Kaliyavan. We think we got this, right? Because Kaliyavan, as we'll read later, thinks that Krishna's scared. He's like, come back. I'm going to, beat you up. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do all these things to you. And he's like, you're just a coward, right? And you're just running away, not knowing that Krishna knows exactly what he's doing, right? And puts him in that situation. Same thing with Dhritarashtra. Thing is he's, Krishna's not doing this to us or to anyone to make us pay, to get us back. He's doing it to help the living entity, just like he did, because who was mentioned? One of the last ones. Because my brain won't trip it. It's in the other one. Shishupal. He gave him like 100 times, and then boom, cut off his head. And he did it not just to shut him up or make him pay for what he was saying, but he did it very specifically so that he wouldn't continue committing offenses. And that's what all of these, that's what karma's about. It's, all the different token reactions that we get, all these reminders and circumstances that were put into Dhritarashtra losing all his 100 sons. I mean, can you imagine just losing one child and he had to lose 100, and the pain and the suffering. But here he is thinking that, not understanding, and even if he does, not even accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ending up in this position. It's his responsibility. It was his fault for losing all of his 100 sons. I mean, he can blame Bhim, he can blame Krishna, but ultimately it was his own selfish behavior. And so it's this own selfish lack of introspection that causes the pain and suffering that we experience in this material world. And so, understanding who Krishna is, he is the energy and we're the energetic. We get manipulated by the energetic. We are subordinate and the servants. And the sooner that we realize that, the better off we'll be, versus being like all these other personalities of, and again, our challenge of being so stubborn that we still think we're the controller and that we think that we're an enjoyer and that everything's meant for, for us, is what gets us into trouble to whatever degree. I mean, obviously as devotees, we're so much more privileged in such an amazing and wonderful position because we only get a token reaction because we've obviously made that commitment to try and become the servant of, Krishna and the devotees and everybody in every living entity. And so we're so fortunate, that we're making that effort. There's this we're here because of our sincerity. And so then Krishna's going to take care of us. He will absolutely. So anything that happens to us that apparently seems negative or even positive is to influence us to go more and more and deeper into understanding and accepting that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and developing our relationship, because that's what comes out of it, right? All these fights and arguments and, going in the opposite direction of Krishna, turning our back to him is what causes all the pain and the suffering. But when we turn to him, that's where our true happiness comes from, and it talks about that in this verse. It's just such an amazing purport. So they are never equally powerful as unintelligent. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. So in other words, with lack of intelligence, they think they're equal to Krishna, right? The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-30 as follows. Aparimita druvasthana brito yari sarvagatas tarhina shasyate niyamo dhruvanetarata ajani chayan mayam tad avimuchanir yantri bhavet samam anujanatam ayadamatam mata dushtataya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control. And that surrender will make them happy. Hello. It's just like, boom, okay? You surrender, trust. I mean, because Krishna's got our back. He loves us unconditionally. Unconditionally. He's taking us, he's willing, to let so many things go. I mean, I was listening to a Prabhupada pastime the other day where he was talking to the devotees and says, talking about being 100%, and then you can go back to Godhead. And he said, okay. And the devotees are, like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Okay, 90%. And then 80%. And then he takes, it's so dramatic, you can just imagine Srila Prabhupada, and one of the devotees saying, he seems so small sometimes, but sometimes he seems so large. But he takes his chadar, swipes it over his shoulder, head high, and says 70%, and you can go back home to Godhead. And what's so amazing about that statement is not that we're getting away with anything, but the power of the pure devotee. Because whatever he says, Krishna will grant, right? So we've been pardoned, to a certain degree of percentage by Prabhupada's mercy to be able to go back home. And so we should give our sincere, effort. And that's how we're going to be happy, is understanding that we're the servants. So the sooner we do that, the less stubborn we are in thinking that we can control everything, the quicker that's going to happen. So in that constitutional position, only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him, right? These living entities, and again, I'm thinking, this 11.5 million soldiers thinking they're going to control and destroy Krishna, and it doesn't happen. 11.5 million people think they're going to get it, but it's not, and they keeps going at it. And that's what we do. That's what, the whole point is to wear us out to the point where we realize we're not the controllers. And so we finally give it up. There was a Native American story that I heard a long time ago about a child having a temper tantrum, right? And so they would put it in a burlap bag and let him fight himself until he wore himself out. And then he was able to, then he would come out and he was a lot more passive, right? Not saying that's what we should do, but it just reminds me so much of what this is talking about, and fighting the material energy, having our little spiritual temper tantrum, thinking we're the controller and that we're going to do it and, just be the enjoyer and everything. And then Krishna will wear us out until we kind of find us, yeah, okay, uncle, I give it up, surrender. Because that's what it is. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all the living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. And that's it. I mean, we come in thinking we're going to go into the controller. We have these bodies that, we take up this material spacesuit that's wired to all the material desires, and then we think we're going to be able to fight against it. And, it's just, we lose our real spiritual mind and intelligence, and we're going after what the eyes are attracted to. This, anything that's not Krishna Katha coming through the ears, tasting things that are not prasadam, smelling, probably really heinous things, touching things. So, the real thing is remembering. And so here is the next statement, which is this forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity, right? But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material desires, including the conception of becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies. Let me read that again. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. And so again, understanding the living entity is one of these multi-energies which are unlimited, right? It reminds me of the story of Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Prabhupada telling him about, there's these millions of unlimited universes, and in these universes there's these planets, and then there's, in these universes there's this planet called Earth, and then on Earth there's this continent called, North America, and, within North America there's the United States. Within the United States, I believe it was Texas, and I'll just go with that, Los Angeles. And so, and then in California there's, this one city, Los Angeles, and then in Los Angeles there's all these, numerous, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, neighborhoods, and, and then there's this little temple, and in this little temple there's this little temple president that thinks he's the controller, right? And so we're minute. Think about it. We walk outside, a tree falls on us, right? And the reason I'm going with that is because, you think about the trees, if you kind of step back out into looking at an aerial view, and then you step back out into looking at a state view, and then think about the world, how microscopic a tree is. But a tree can pretty much destroy this body, right? in the big picture, we're so teeny. And so, in order to, be happy, we have to understand, who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, and realize that in coming into that place, we can, realization of understanding who he is, and, getting rid of our forgetfulness, is understanding, this personal connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this reminds me of one of my spiritual master's favorite verse, is that for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he never lost to me. So what this comes down to is that Krishna's in control of everything. So if we take shelter from him and surrender, we get our protection, we get our love, we get our affection, we get our connection, we get everything fulfilled. We get all our desires fulfilled in a spiritual way, obviously not in a material way, and maybe even materially. But, it's just, we can relinquish fear. We can be satisfied. We can get rid of the false ego. We can get rid of conflict. We can get rid of so many things by learning to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, we become a loving machine, right? We become full of love of Godhead. And then we can share that with others. And we can actually not serve others because we're told to serve others, because that's what we do, but we learn to serve others because we actually care about them, because they're connected to Krishna, right? It starts getting personal that way, and we care for all the living entities, down to every single living entity, because they're part and parcel of Krishna, and and then it becomes this little merry dance, happy dance of all these souls connected to Krishna, right? I just imagine all the souls coming together and just swirling around each other and being so happy because they're connected to Krishna and connected to each other. There's so much strength and satisfaction in numbers, right? And one of the things that attracted me the most to Krishna consciousness in the beginning was because I was going to so many different temples, right, with some of the devotees, and went on my first retreat, like a beach retreat, with a lot of ladies. It was a spiritual retreat, so we had the morning program, walks on the beaches, japa, cooking together. There was it was like extended family. And that was one of the things that was so attractive, is because no matter where I went to any of the temples, it was like I was being treated like family. And that to me was so amazing. And that's what's so amazing. And that's what really Krishna consciousness is. Krishna consciousness is the realization is that we have unlimited extended family if we choose to surrender and take shelter and remember that we're the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So I think that's, I don't know if anybody has any comments or thoughts. Yes, Trista? Okay. So North Carolina, North Carolina is 10.8 million. So the whole state, 10.8 million, is less than what was surrounding Dwarka or Mathura, So it's pretty darn massive, But still, same thing like Kurukshetra. There was a time when the Pandavas were knocked down, to 7 Akshahinis, and there were 9 on the other, or 11 on the other side. And they thought, and they were losing these powerful people, and they thought by losing Bhishma that they were going to lose, this, like, all of these apparent defeats. But who was on their side? Who was in their heart? Who did they give their full heart, life, soul, body, mind, intelligence, words, thoughts? Krishna. And so where did they end up? Winning, right? And that's where we end up when we take shelter of Krishna and we remember that we're not the controller and the enjoyer, but Krishna is. And then we ask everybody into the party, come on, let's serve Krishna, let's be happy. We're not the enjoyer, we don't have, so what does that do? That do you know what a lightening of load, mental load and physical load it is to forget your false ego and to think that you're a controller and give all that control over to Krishna? How light is that load? To let go of all of that, because there's so many expectations that come, mental weight that comes from thinking that they're in control or in the enjoyer, and how am I going to get all that? When you let go of all that, there's so much weight that's gone, and so then you're happy, and so we get to ask everybody into the happy movement. Yes, Apurva. Oh, it was in North Carolina. Kamalini was there. There were several women, and we went to Wrightsville Beach. Wrightsville, which is Wilmington. It's one of the beaches in Wilmington, right on the coast. And it was wonderful, again, because of the sense of family. Hearing Prabhupada's lectures, cooking together, walks on the beach. For me, it was just a sense of family and belonging. Right, and because I had really struggled with that pretty much my whole life. I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I belonged. I never felt like I had a place. And so coming into Krishna consciousness has given me that. And that was part of the start of that, is like having a place to belong, right? Because I never felt like I fit in with my family. I felt like I was always the black sheep, odd man out, just, didn't fit in. I had a core group of really wonderful friends that I still have. But that I would say that was the most of it. And then, just an introduction a gentle introduction into what it was like, to have the morning program, Mangalarti and Japa, offering prasadam, kind of introducing me to all these, elements of stepping into Krishna consciousness. So it was actually quite wonderful. In helping me support and, just kind of extending that idea of extended family, which is, what I always try to do actually when I welcome guests and I happen to be at the temple, in the temple room, etc., is, I just tell them, that I appreciate that there's this extended family and I'd like to welcome them to that. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to the Association of the Devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Radha Golokananda Ki Jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Menam Kanvantam Maravindanalayataksam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Bajahure mana Shri Nananana Bayacharana Vindure Bajahure mana Shri Nananana Bayacharana Vindure Durlabha Manava Janama Satsange Durlabha Manava Janama Satsange Taro e Bhava Sindure Sita Atapa Patabarishana Edina Jamini Jagire Patabarishana Edina Jamini Jagire Pipale Sevenu Kripana Durjana Vipali Sevenu Kripana Durjana Durjana Chapala Sukala Bala Gire Sukala Bala Gire Edana Yaubana Putra Parijana ite ki ache parati dire. Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Dala Mala Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Dala Mala Bajahu Hari Padani Dire Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dashare Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dashare Pujana Saki Jana Atmani Vedana Pujana Saki Jana Atmani Vedana Govinda Dasa Bilashare Vajahure Mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanada Vendare Mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanada Vendare Vajahure Mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanada Vendare Abhaya Charanada Vendare Durlabha Manava Janama Satsange Durlabha Manava Janama Satsange Taro Hoe Baba Sindure Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Radhe Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Giri Govardhan, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharyasta Sata Shishimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Premsiko Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shishi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda, Hari Hari Bolo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki. O mind, just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which makes one fearless. Having obtained this rare human birth, cross over this ocean of worldly existence by associating with saintly persons. Day and night I remain sleepless, suffering heat and cold, wind and rain. For a bit of flickering happiness, I have vainly served wicked and miserly men. What assurance of real happiness is there in all one's wealth, youth, sons, and relatives? This life totters like a drop of water on a lotus petal. Therefore, you should always worship the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Govinda Das longs to hear the glories of Lord Hari, chant his glories, constantly remember him, offer him prayers, serve his lotus feet, become his servant, worship him, offer him his prayers, serve his lotus feet, become his servant. This is a repeat. Worship him, serve him as a friend, and completely offer him his very self. Woohoo! So, okay, Ki Jai, thank you. Tadarpana marjanam bhavahamaya yugapanam Jayakairava Chandrika Taranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Patipatam Purnam Vishvasmaranam Vatmasnapanam Te Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrisham Vihajani Nanuragaha Trinitapi Sunichena Taro Sahishnuna Amani Namanatena Kirtana Sadaharahi Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagarishvakamaye Mamajananmani Janma Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahetuki Tvayi Ayinanda Tanunja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Budao Kripatava Pada Pankaja Shtita Duli Sadrisham Vinchintaya Nayanam Galada Shrudaraya Vandanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulakalaya Nichitam Vapukada Tavanama Krihane Bhavishyati Yugayitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pavrishayitam Shunyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahinami Ashlisha Vapadaratam Panishtamam Darshanam Mamar Mahatam Karotava Yatatatava Vidadatu Lampato Matparana Natastu Saeva Naparaha. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names, like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense, false prestige, should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful men, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me at one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional. Shasta ki jai.
This week we'll be having Harinam Sankirtan on Friday evening, or Friday late afternoon, 4 to 6 in Chapel Hill. Same place we had it last week on Saturday. It's going to be much warmer, and we hope everybody can come. Lots of students will be out to start partying for the weekend. So 4 to 6 on Friday evening at Chapel Hill at the post office on Franklin Street. Haribo.